Thank you for listening to Balanced Black Girl. My name is Les. I am your host, and I appreciate you tapping in. So right now it is fall, if you're listening to this episode when it's being released. And when I think of fall, I tend to think of fresh starts. Maybe it's because, being in school for so long. Also, I have a late summer birthday, so heading into fall is always when I'm a year older. But I found that this time of year is always a lot more effective for me in creating new routines and setting goals than the new year. I actually like to use the new year as more of like an intention setting and a check-in, but there is something about that back to school energy that also helps me when it comes to things like work and when it comes to things like organization. So a few months ago on TikTok, I ended up posting this random video that did some numbers, not amazing numbers, but some numbers for me because my TikTok is kind of small. It doesn't really do big numbers. But I, in this video, was talking about having a type A- personality, which is not something I've ever heard anyone else ever talk about. So when I describe a type A- personality, it to me is someone who is mostly type A, who has things mostly in a row, but like I can sleep at night. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day is going to end. And if there's a dish in the sink or something, I'm still going to sleep and I'm still going to have a little bit of peace, even if things aren't perfect. And as I've reflected more on having a type A- personality and saw on TikTok how much that resonated with other people, I wanted to talk a little bit more about it. Because I actually think that there is a bit of beauty in knowing when to do just enough. And I think that more of us could be served to know when to do just enough, but not too much. From a young age, a lot of us are conditioned to go above and beyond at everything. And I don't think that we need to go above and beyond at everything. I think that we can go above and beyond at the things that really matter to us, but there are some things that I think we can be a little more A- about, even B+, if I'm being real honest, depending on the day. You might catch me being type B+, you know what I'm saying? And so I think knowing when to push and knowing when to pull is super important for our sense of balance, for our sense of harmony, for our sense of well-being. And so all of these are things that have been floating around in my head this fall. I've been thinking more about being a type A- personality and how I do feel like it has served me because I know when to work and I know when to pull back without burning myself out and being kind of a workaholic. But I've also thought about how good of a time of year this is for new systems and for new organization. And if you haven't been listening to the podcast for very long, you may not know that this is the first year that I have done the podcast and content full time. And so with that, I've had to do a lot of work at figuring out what systems and organizational tools work for me. For so long, I did content as a side hustle where I was doing it before work, I was doing it after work, I was doing it on the weekends, and I was balancing it with a full-time job, often some other type of side hustle or job. Like I always had multiple jobs. And so this past almost year has been my first time kind of focusing on one thing, sort of. I still have multiple things that I'm doing, but you know what I mean? I'm not juggling a corporate job and the show or a corporate job and social media and a blog. It's been my first time that I could really focus. And with that, I have had a lot of struggles getting my arms around routines that work really well for me. But I didn't want to come on here and just talk about what my routines are because that doesn't necessarily serve everybody. We're all entirely different. You could have a different career. You could have a different lifestyle. Your brain could work entirely different from mine. And so me just coming and saying, well, here's what I do could be helpful to spark maybe some ideas. But I think what is most helpful when we talk about things like productivity and organization and systems is figuring out what works for our brains because all of our brains are entirely different. So for a long time, I was very obsessed with this idea of finding the perfect productivity system. And it wasn't until I learned how to redefine productivity for myself and that I learned how my brain worked that I felt like I started making progress in this area. So for a really long time, I would define productivity as doing as much as possible. It meant having a mile-long to-do list every single day and every single day checking every single thing off that list. And if I did not check every single thing off that list, then I wasn't productive. The day was a waste. I would beat myself up about it. Or if I spent a little too much time on social media, I would beat myself up about it. I have since then really changed my perspective of what I think productivity is. So these days, I actually don't define productivity as how much I get done. I now define productivity as how much space am I able to create. So I actually think if I have a mile-long to-do list and I'm working for like 12 hours to get it done, that to me isn't productive because it's actually really inefficient. Like for all of the things on that list, did I personally have to do them all? Did I have to do them today? Was there a way that I could have done them quicker or more efficiently? Was there a way that I could have delegated them? Was there a way that I could have saved time doing some of those things? So for me, productivity is so much more about the space that I can create to do the things that I love that don't involve work than it is about how many, items on a list can I check off. And with that reframe, it has totally changed the ways that I approach my days, the way that I approach time, the ways that I approach work, even the ways that I manage my team. For a long time, I would delegate tasks to others and think, okay, if someone else is doing it, that's good. But now I'm realizing, even as a manager, because if you are a manager in corporate or if you're an entrepreneur and you have a team, like you essentially are a manager, it's not necessarily enough to just delegate a task to someone else. You also need to make sure that they're equipped with the tools and resources they need to also be efficient, because inefficiency doesn't work no matter who's doing it, whether that's you, whether that's an assistant, whether that's somebody on your team at work or your coworker. The goal should be efficiency all the way around for everybody. So when I started thinking more like that, it has really changed the game with how I approach my days and how I approach time. And I find myself feeling a lot less mentally fatigued by the things on my plate, even though my plate is still generally pretty full. So for you, for your job, for how your days look, for your lifestyle, I recommend starting with what the average day entails for you. And is there opportunities in that to create more space for the things that you really love? So if you find that there are redundancies, if there are things that take longer than they should, if there are things that are inefficient that are keeping you from doing the things that you love or spending time with the people that you love, or even just having space for silence and stillness, I think is some of the best ways we can spend our time is being still. Start identifying what some of those things are. And sometimes it's hard because sometimes those things are not in our control. I mean, I remember in the past having super long commutes and I didn't have an option for public transit. I didn't have an option to carpool with other people. I truly just had to sit in my car in traffic for, 2 hours each way. And yes, I would listen to podcasts, or yes, I would listen to audiobooks and kind of feel like I was getting something out of that time. But at the end of the day, I was spending 3 to 4 hours a day in my car, and there wasn't really a way around that. But ways that I could look at it differently could be, okay, well, when I am actually at work outside of my commute time, am I being as efficient as possible with this? Am I calling out redundancies in my organization? Am I calling out redundancies in my own day? And am I looking to address them? Because for some things, we may not necessarily be able to cut time or figure out ways to make things faster. So it really is all about looking at where can you actually control some of the factors that are happening in your day. And I also very much understand what it is like to have a job where you are trying to make improvements and you are trying to implement efficiencies and people are just not having it. So you really have to do the best you can do. If it's maybe not happening at work or in your commute, what are some ways that you can drive more efficiency at home so that you can have more downtime during your time there? Or what are some ways that you can drive efficiencies in your social life so that you and your friends aren't constantly going back and forth about what to do and when to see one another? Are there ways that you can simplify that process? So really take a look at your time, take a look at your days, take a look at where you are spending a lot of time and maybe where you don't like spending a lot of time, and look for ways to improve that so that you can focus more on the things that you really want to do. Now, the next thing is really becoming a systems thinker. And this is hard. It is really hard because when we're in school, we're not necessarily taught to be systems thinkers. I actually think for a lot of us, particularly who experience public school, public school kid here, K through 12, we're not necessarily taught to be systems thinkers. In fact, I would argue that in a lot of ways, we're not really taught to be thinkers. We're taught to be little doers. And there's, value in being able to execute, but I would think a lot of us aren't really taught how to think critically and how to assess whether or not a situation is working. And I think that's why we run into so many obstacles in various different areas. I would even argue that it is intentional that we are not taught those things, because then we can continue to be stuck in certain places where society wants to keep us stuck. But we now have the power to break through that. We now, especially as adults, have the power to think deeply about things, to question why we do things, to question why things are the way they are, and to implement changes that we want to see, at least in our own lives, to an extent. And I think one of the best ways to do this is to start implementing systems. So instead of looking at maybe tasks or projects or things that we have to do as simply things that we are lined up on a list to do, what are ways that we can tie them all together to make it even more easy, to make it even more efficient? So when I'm approaching my business, I'm always thinking a lot about systems. I'm thinking, does my team have everything that they need to execute each part of the podcast publishing process? And if we identify an area where maybe someone's waiting on me to respond to something before they're able to do their job, or they don't have the information they need, then I can say, okay, that's a gap in our system and we need to fix that, because everybody needs to have exactly what they need to be able to do what it is that they need to do. And I'm definitely not perfect at this. This is something that I'm still learning as a leader and just as a person. And we have things that fall through the cracks that we identify fixes for all the time. But it's being able to take a step back and say, if I were removed from this situation, would it still be able to run efficiently, at least from a work standpoint? Now, I also think systems are really helpful at home, especially when it comes to maintaining a clean space, when it comes to how we go through our day-to-day lives. So I have an example of a system that is going to sound really silly and it's going to sound super simple, but has made the biggest change in my mental health. So I live in a tiny apartment. I joke with my friends that it is a dorm room because that's basically how it feels. I live in a tiny studio apartment, my dorm room, as I call it, and I am very pressed for space. I am somebody who likes to have clean surfaces. So if there is a surface, whether it is a table, a desk, a shelf, a cabinet, those are the types of things that I love to keep clear, because I find that I have so much more mental clarity when surfaces are clear. So an issue that I ran into is that on any given day, I am using so many different bags, whether that is my gym bag that I use in the morning, or whether that is a big tote bag that I use during the workday, or a small purse that I use at night. I have a habit of using 3 to 4 different bags a day. Listen, that's my life. That's what it is. And so what I was doing is I was using my little dining room table as my bag changing station. And so I would sling purses everywhere. All the contents of all the purses would be spilled all over the table and hanging off the chairs, because I was always switching out bags in a hurry as I was going from place to place. And this was stressing me out so badly, because I hate having things on surfaces. I don't like having stuff on tables or stuff on dressers or stuff on cabinets. It was really, really stressing me out. And so I ended up creating a system for myself to keep that space clear and to make the bag switching process a lot easier. So I ended up getting this little marble tray that I sat on my entryway cabinet that I walk by before I leave the door. And the system that I implemented is, when I come home from something, all of the important things that are in whatever bag that I'm using, so like my wallet, my headphones, my hand sanitizer, whatever are like the important things that I want to make sure I have in whatever bag I'm using, I automatically put it in that marble tray. And then whatever purse or bag that I'm using immediately goes into its place in the closet. And then when it's time for me to leave again, and I inevitably am using a different bag because this is who I am as a person, I grab the bag that I'm using now from the closet. As I walk by the marble tray, the visuals of the things that need to go in the bag are the trigger that I put the things in the bag, and then I leave. And I repeat this every day as I switch bags throughout the day. And this has been so helpful because it's a really easy system for me to take something that I do every day, such as switching bags, makes it super easy, but I'm not creating extra clutter and creating like a purse changing station out of my dining room table. When I first moved to the East Coast from California, I really had to start over when it came to having warm fall and winter wardrobe pieces. So I stocked up on some go-to pieces that always get compliments. And you know what? They are all from Quince. Seriously, my favorite sweaters, the ones that everyone asks me about, are from Quince, and I've been shopping with them for years. Not only are their Mongolian cashmere sweaters incredibly soft and luxurious, but they start at just $50. And it's not just sweaters. When I need a new jacket, a cozy hat, or even gloves and scarves, Quince is my one-stop shop. Everything is made from premium materials like cashmere, leather, and cotton, all at prices that are 50 to 80% less than what you'd pay for other high-end brands, and the quality is fantastic. I love how Quince partners directly with top factories, cutting out the middleman so you get amazing quality without breaking the bank. Plus, they use ethical and responsible manufacturing practices, which makes me feel even better about my purchases. So many of my key wardrobe staples are from Quince. My favorite dresses, sweaters, jackets, even my luggage is from Quince. They truly have everything. If you're ready to upgrade your fall and winter wardrobe with luxurious essentials that won't bust your budget, head over to quince.com/balanceless for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/balancedless. These days, I'm all about the convenience of ordering groceries online, especially to avoid busy, crowded stores. And that's why I've been a loyal Thrive Market member since 2017. It's made shopping so much easier, and I love knowing that I'm getting the best, healthiest options delivered straight to my door at an amazing price. What I appreciate most about Thrive Market is their commitment to high-quality, trusted ingredients. They've restricted over 1,000 ingredients you'd find in typical grocery stores, so I can shop in confidence knowing everything is safe and wholesome. Certified organic is their first choice, and they really do the work to make sure what's on their site meets strict standards, so you know that you are getting the best quality available. Thrive also has those hard to find, clean brands that I love, whether I'm stocking up on snacks, pantry staples, or even natural cleaning products. Everything has been vetted by their team. And it's not just about convenience. They're on a mission to make healthy, sustainable living affordable for everyone. So a lot of those specialty items cost so much less on Thrive than they would in the traditional store. On my most recent order, I saved over 30% of what I would pay for the same items at the grocery store. Plus, every membership sponsors a family in need, which makes it feel even more worthwhile. If you're ready to simplify your grocery shopping and get healthier options delivered to your door, head to thrivemarket.com/balanceless for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/balancedless. So it's not even something that I need to remember or be conscious of. I just see it and it triggers, hey, do this. And it has made my life so much easier. So that sounds so silly and so small, but that's an example of a system that you can create to make your life so much easier. So if you are somebody who is always losing your keys, do you have a hook near the door that you can put your keys on so that it's automatic every time you come and go? You can do that. If you're somebody who is always losing your phone, do you have a little docking station with a specific place that is your phone's home base and it only leaves there if you're using it? Find ways that you can simplify and solve problems that you're having that are getting in the way of your mental clarity that don't require a lot of mental effort. So that is the goal of systems. It's to solve a problem without creating a lot of mental effort. Now, an example of a work system that I use is that the way that we produce this podcast is the same process, like week over week, when it comes to the way I outline an episode, the way we write the show notes, the way that we share audio and video files across everybody who touches the show and helps edit. All of those things are exactly the same episode after episode, even though the content of each episode is different. So it makes no sense to start that whole process from scratch every single week. So what I did, and I did this years ago, was I created a little Notion template that I have for myself. And every time we start working on a new episode in our editorial calendar, I hit this little button that says, either solo podcast episode or guest podcast episode, and it populates a whole Notion page with the entire process. So this Notion page will have everything from the template we use to write our show notes. It will have the outlines that we use to help me script and prepare for every single episode. It'll have the outlines that we use to do guest research. It'll have a little space where we share video files with our team. And I don't need to recreate that every time. I created it once and then I just duplicate it with the click of a button. So it's a really easy system that we're able to rinse and repeat. And over the years, I've had different people kind of come and go and help me with the show. And every time I have someone new come on, I'm able to just walk them through the system that's already in place. It's clearly documented for them, and they're able to come right into the flow. So that's an example of a work-related system that I've used for years that has made it really, really helpful for me to just continue running the show as efficiently as possible. And even when I worked in corporate, I used to create really similar things because I used to manage, editorial calendars and content for a team at work. And so we had really repeatable editorial calendars and templates and processes that we would follow each and every time, so that we're not using our mental energy recreating the wheel. We're using our mental energy to be creative for the final product. We're not using it for that admin-y stuff, because that's not really the best use of anyone's time. And if you are interested in learning how I use Notion specifically to manage the podcast, I actually do have a template that you can purchase that is a full podcast dashboard that lives in Notion, that is an exact replica of everything that I've used to manage Balanced Black Girl for years. So it has all of our show notes templates, it has all of our episode templates, it has a full editorial calendar where you can manage guest outreach and pitches. It has spaces where you can manage your ads and ad revenue. It has literally exactly verbatim what we use. So I will link that in the show notes if you have a podcast or if you manage content in some other way and you want to check it out. So as you are looking for ways to get more organized, look for ways to create systems that work for you, both personally and professionally. And you can also create systems that work for your wellness as well. So for me, something that I do every single week is I will sit down and I will look at, okay, what are the events that I have this upcoming week? What are the meetings that I have this upcoming week? Where am I in my menstrual cycle? How much will I have on my plate? Will I have a lot of stress? Will I have low stress? I will factor all of these things in, and then I will map out what my gym schedule is for that week. And I'll go in and I will plan what my workouts will be that week. And I'll sign up for any workout classes for the week ahead, factoring in my schedule. So if I have a 9 a.m. meeting, I know not to sign up for the 8 a.m. class that I like to take or whatever it is. And I will tailor that for each week. So that's part of my weekly planning system. And when you take the time to map things out, you're able to just go through your week seamlessly because you already know that it's all mapped out for you. So next, I want to talk a little bit about tools. Now, I waited till the later part in this episode to talk about tools because I think that a mistake that we often make when we're trying to become more organized is we jump straight to tools. We think, oh, I am unorganized, so I need to get Notion. I am unorganized, so I need to color code my calendar. I'm unorganized, so I need this specific notebook. And yes, those are all super helpful tools that I personally use, and I will talk more specifics about the things that I use and make recommendations about that. But if you have not done those first couple of steps that I've talked about, if you have not defined what productivity and organization means to you in this season of your life, if you have not gotten a good idea of how your brain works, are you somebody who does better with visuals? Are you somebody who does better with physically writing things down? Are you somebody who does better with external cues? You have to identify all of those things to understand how your own brain works, and then you select the tools that are going to work best for you. Because what a lot of us tend to do, and I'm very guilty of this, and I was so guilty of this for a long time, is we take our very unorganized minds and then we try to just use a tool that doesn't collaborate well with our unorganized minds. And then we give up on it and we either blame the tool or we beat ourselves up. You need to figure out what works best for you, and you need to start putting the right things in place to help yourself make more sense of maybe some of the chaos you're navigating, and then find a tool that better complements that. Because all of the tools work, but also none of them will work if you don't know yourself and if you don't know what you need. Because we also, during different stages of our life, can need different things. Maybe if we're in a very work heavy stage, we need more digital organization. Maybe our files are a mess and our phone is a mess and we need to focus on being organized in that area. Or maybe we have a little bit more going on in our personal life at home and the digital space is okay, but like our physical space needs a lot more attention to give us more clarity. So you really need to figure out what is going to best serve me in this season that I'm in, and then find the right tools to help you through that season. So allowing there to be a little bit of fluidity with the tools that you use is super, super important. Okay, so with that, I'm going to talk about some of the tools that I really love that help me stay organized and focused, both personally and professionally. So the first thing I will say is that I am very much a pen and paper kind of person. So I always need some sort of notebook that I can just scribble thoughts down in. And then I need some sort of paper planner to help me map out my day that has specific structure that I can follow. That is how my brain works. That is what I need. Again, I have a very linear brain, so I need very linear structure. So for me, I usually will have a kind of plain lined notebook that I use for things like brain dumps. So getting everything out of my brain onto paper. And I usually like to do this on Sundays or Mondays for the week ahead. I think about all the deadlines coming up, all the bills I need to pay, all of the people I need to respond to, all of the content that's due that week, all of the tasks that I can think of. I will write it down in my plain notebook as my brain dump. And then when I sit down and I'm at my planner or my calendar or my task manager, I'm looking at my brain dump and I'm mapping out when I'm going to do each thing. But for me, there's something about physically writing things out that just really helps me feel like I'm getting it out of my head and helps me feel less stressed. Let's talk about skincare for a second. We all know that aging is natural, but what if I told you there's something deeper going on in our skin called inflammaging? It's this silent, ongoing inflammation caused by things like stress, pollution, and even our diets, and it's breaking down our collagen and elastin, leading to visible aging. Now that's where Dende comes in. I've been loving Dende because it's the first bio-based skincare line that specifically targets inflammaging. Their formulas are backed by science and clinically proven to improve moisture, elasticity, and overall skin texture while helping to reduce fine lines and dryness. And this is absolutely what I've noticed using their skin strengthening serum, which I've been using for a while now. The texture of my skin is feeling amazing. What makes Dende so unique is their proprietary biotech ingredient, which targets inflammaging 15 times more effectively than niacinamide. It's a game changer for anyone wanting to take a proactive approach to skincare, especially if you're focused on preserving your collagen and maintaining your skin's health for the long haul. So if you're ready to elevate your skincare routine and fight inflammaging, head to dende.com and use the code BALANCEDLESS to get 15% off your first order. That's DEINDE.com and use the code BALANCEDLESS to get 15% off your first order at Dende. I've got to share something that I have been using for years now that has made a huge difference in my hydration game, and that is Element electrolytes. You know how important hydration is, especially if you work out or you're moving through busy days or even just chilling in the sauna. When we sweat, we have to replace what we lose, but it's not just about drinking water. You also need electrolytes to really feel your best. Element has been my go-to for a long time because it gives me exactly what I need: sodium, magnesium, and potassium without any of the sugar or artificial junk you find in most sports drinks. It's super clean and keeps me feeling energized, clear-headed, and ready to take on the day. And 'tis the season where I'm loving their chocolate medley flavors. It's all about the cozy hydration this season. I've been adding the chocolate mint to my coffee for a delicious minty mocha in the morning. And when I want to wind down at night, the chocolate chai mixed with hot water and a splash of cream is so cozy. It's like hot chocolate with added benefits. Because I've been a longtime fan, I've partnered with Element to hook you up so you can get a free sample pack with any purchase at drinkelement.com/balanceless. That's drinklmnt.com/balanceless. And it's totally risk-free. If you don't love it, just give it to a friend and Element will refund your money, no questions asked. So give it a try and let me know what you think. I want to put you on to a podcast that is a fantastic listen, and that is Code Switch from NPR. Now, if you haven't heard of it yet, let me just say this show handles race and identity like nothing you've ever heard of before. They don't sugarcoat it, but they also don't preach at you. Instead, they explore how race and identity shape our world in real, relatable, and yes, sometimes even funny ways. Whether they're talking to comedians of color about what makes a good race joke or breaking down how identity plays out in reality TV, Code Switch is always asking the right questions. And they don't just stay in the headlines, they dig into the everyday stuff too, like setting boundaries with immigrant parents to breaking down identity in media. One episode that really hit home for me was called What's in a Name? They explored the cultural significance of names, especially for people of color, and how something as simple as your name can shape the way the world sees you and how you see yourself. It had me thinking about all of the times that my name has been mispronounced or turned into something else. And the way that they unpacked that experience was so real. Every episode feels like a love letter to the ways that race and identity are always connected and how your life, no matter who you are, is made richer by thinking through them. Listen now to Code Switch from NPR wherever you get your podcasts, and I promise you will enjoy the listen. Again, Code Switch from NPR can be found wherever you get your podcasts. I'm also excited to share this is a soft launch announcement just for people who listen to the podcast or who watch it, that I am developing my own planner, and I'm so excited to share it with you super soon. It's going to be launching in 2025. I have had every planner known to man, and I've never been able to find the perfect planner that is no frills, that really works for a type A- brain. And so I'm really, really excited to be creating it right now, and I'm experimenting with prototypes and testing it, and I'm really, really excited to share it soon. So I technically do not have a planner recommendation that is on the market yet to give you, but in the coming months, depending on when you're listening to this, mine will be coming soon. So if you are interested in checking that out, getting on the wait list for it, I will leave a link in the show notes where you can do that. But for me, I really like having on one page my schedule and a place to put my to-do list so that I can map everything out kind of by hand there, particularly when it comes to work and tasks. So that's what I like to use my planner for, is like, what are all the tasks I need to get done in the day? And then when am I actually doing the tasks? And for me, I personally like to do this by hand in my paper planner. Now, I will say it is 2024, at least when I'm coming out with this episode. We are all our own form of Xenon girl of the 21st century. So we do need something electronic. And so I do use both paper and electronic. My calendar of choice is my Google Calendar, and I swear by my Google Calendar. If it is not on my Google Calendar, I will not be attending. You will not see me, because if it's not on my Google Calendar, I will not remember to be there. And that is just what it is. So I use my Google Calendar not to map out tasks, but I use it to map out appointments. So if I have meetings, if I have a workout class that I'm planning, if I'm hanging out with friends, if I have an event that I'm supposed to go to, all of the things that are not task related live on my Google Calendar. And I like to create different colors for different things. So I have a color specifically for self-care. That is, my workouts, maybe beauty appointments, and time with friends, or just fun time. I consider that self-care. I have a specific color on my calendar for meetings. I have a specific color on my calendar for podcast recordings. I have a specific color color on my calendar for deadlines, which is like a bright color so that they really catch my attention when I'm looking at my calendar. Basically, the whole point of me keeping an electronic calendar is so that I can manage my time when I'm on the go. So in my paper planner, where I do have a schedule there, that is really to map out when I'm doing tasks, but my electronic calendar is to map out where I need to be and when. So that is the difference between those two things for me. Big Google Calendar fan. Sending me a meeting notice on Google Calendar is a love language. The next tool that I really like, and I have mentioned it before, I've also talked about it a ton on this podcast over the years, is Notion. So with Notion, the beauty of Notion is that it is fully customizable. That is the beauty of it. That is also, I think, the hard part about it for some people is that you get this like blank database and it could be anything, which can be really, really intimidating. So that is why it's really important to understand what it is that you need before you approach any tool. My Notion is massive because I've been using it for so long and because I've been tweaking and reiterating it so much over time to be exactly what I need. The main ways that I use Notion would be for tracking my own personal goals. I use it as my work database. So for all of the work that we do around the podcast, as I mentioned, all lives in Notion. Everything that we write, everything that we create, a lot of the content that I create, the newsletters that I write, all of those things I draft in an editorial calendar in Notion that is shared with my coworkers who support what we do here with the podcast and with all of my content. I use it to track finances, specifically my business finances, just because when you have a business or you're a freelancer, it's a little bit different than when you have a 9-to-5, and I need to track every single dollar that comes in and comes out. So I use Notion to track that. And then I also use Notion to track, where does it come from? Is it a brand deal? Is it the podcast? Is it affiliate? Is it this? Is it that? So I use Notion to track all of those things specifically. And then I also use Notion just to map out any goals, my shopping lists, my wish lists. I use it also for a lot of personal planning as well, but it took me a really long time to tweak it and make it exactly what I want. And as much as I love Notion for creating things and for storing information, I have found that for my brain, it doesn't necessarily work for everything. I was using it for a while to do project management, and I found that it didn't quite work for my brain to use such an open tool as project management. And so I use Asana for project management, which is a separate tool. Asana is what I use to manage things like my brand deals. It's where I communicate with my manager about where things are and my brand deal deadlines. It's also what I'm using to manage the project of the planner line that I'm creating. So Asana is a good one with a little bit more structure if you need maybe specific boards, specific timelines related to project management that involve a lot of different stakeholders. It's also the tool that I used to use in my corporate job. So it's just something that I'm really, really comfortable with in communicating with a team. Now, another tool that I use, and this is newer to me, and I don't know if I'm going to use this tool for forever, but it's actually been super helpful for me when it comes to time management. And that's the thing also about tools. You don't have to use them for forever. Sometimes a tool can help you implement new habits. And then once you've got the habit, you can kind of get what you need somewhere else. But it's called Sansuma. I think it's Sansuma is what it's called. I'll make sure it's linked correctly in the show notes. Sansuma is a tool that helps you with time blocking. So with it, you're able to connect things like your Google Calendar and your inbox and your Notion and your Asana, and you're able to import all of your tasks into one place and map them against your calendar. Now, what I really like about this tool is it's actually helped me a lot with my kind of time I call it time optimism. Some other people may call it time blindness. But basically, everything tends to take longer than I, in my brain, think it should take. And so what I've really liked about Sansuma, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. I will link it, like I said, correctly below. I use it. I don't really talk about it that much, okay? Normally I like to pronounce things right, but for some reason that word is escaping me. What I really like about this tool is that you can import tasks onto your calendar, but you also have timers. So you can say, I need to write this blog post and I think it's going to take 90 minutes to write. And then in the tool, you can start a timer when you do it, and you can see how long it actually takes you. And so it has really helped me realize that there are some things I do that actually take a lot longer than I think that they would. And then there's some things that I do that actually don't take as long as I think they would, and I can be a little bit more efficient. So this has just been a really helpful tool that I've been using for the past few weeks, testing out to really experiment with how I spend my time. It's helped me identify areas of my life that need a little bit more time if things take a little bit longer. And then it's also helped me identify ways that I can be a little bit more efficient if things can be done a little bit quicker, or if I could get off my phone and actually do the task, actually happen a lot quicker. So if you're somebody who really likes electronic tools, you like the idea of time blocking, and you want to figure out how to make your time work together like a puzzle, that could be a really good tool for you. Like I said, I don't know if it's something that I'm going to use permanently, but it's really helping me understand how long things in my business and in my day truly take so that I can reapproach and restructure my time a little bit better. And then the last tool that I'm going to talk about is actually ChatGPT. And I know the girls have been loving ChatGPT. I've been seeing so many videos on TikTok of people using it in really cool ways. I was also recently talking to my friend Kim, who uses it in really inspiring ways. She uses it to manifest and to map out her dream life. She will put her goals into it and say, okay, what does my average day need to look like to live this life? And has just used it in really cool ways. I need to experiment with still doing that. I have been using it in a little bit more tactical ways. So I put into ChatGPT, okay, this is everything I need to do in a week. I need to produce a podcast episode. I need to produce a YouTube video. I need to write a newsletter. I need to post on Instagram 4 days a week. I need to post on TikTok 3 times a day. How do I get all of that done in a regular work schedule Monday through Friday? And then it spit out a schedule to me that I could use for batching those different tasks. And I've actually been doing it over the past few weeks, and it's helped me a lot. It's actually not only helped me be a lot more efficient, but it's actually helped protect my focus when I know, okay, this day of the week is when I do all podcast things, or this day of the week is when I do all social media things. And I don't know if I would have thought of that schedule on my own, honestly. ChatGPT was super, super helpful for that. So if you have a lot of maybe deadlines or tasks that you're working on, it can be really helpful to help you map out a plan of action for that. Even as I was mapping out some of my project boards in Asana, I put into ChatGPT, this is the project I'm working with. These are the deliverables. These are the stakeholders. Tell me how I should organize my Asana board to best support the workflow of this project. And then it gave me a really great outline that I've then been able to use and implement in Asana to help me feel a lot more organized. I've also seen some of the girls use it to create workout plans. I've seen some of the girls use it to create meal plans. Say you type in, give me a meal plan eating 100 grams of protein a day, and I don't like XYZ foods. And then it can tell you a meal plan and a grocery list for you to use. So many ways that we can kind of outsource the things that we tend to spend a lot of brain power on, but aren't the best place to use that brain power to create more space in other areas of our lives is, I think, a really great source of productivity. So as we think about putting all of that together, it's really about understanding what season are you in? What do you need organizationally from this season? What best works for your brain, and how will your brain and life feel more supported? And then what are the best tools in this moment to support you through that process? And that is what is going to create an organizational system that works best for you. And again, it's okay to give it a little bit of fluidity. Maybe this is the minus and the A minus talking, where I'm it's okay to use this tool for a while. And then when that doesn't serve you, you can move on and you can use this. But when you are able to let go of some of the rigidity and to let things serve you and then let go when they don't, I think that creates so much more freedom. You're able to let your concept of organization evolve with you instead of holding on to things that may not be working for you. So I really encourage you, after listening to this episode, to grab your journal, do a bit of reflecting of maybe the ways that you feel disorganized in life right now, and start brainstorming some potential solutions. Just start thinking through some ways that you can best support yourself through that, and then start looking for tools and systems that will help make that easier. Okay, that is what I have for you today, all about creating an organizational system that works specifically for you. All of the resources that I mentioned today will be in the show notes if you want to check them out. So things like my podcast Notion templates, the waiting list for the upcoming planners, the other episodes that also support this episode if you want to talk more about decluttering your space or digital decluttering, I will have all of that linked for you there. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that it was helpful for you. If it was, please be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or on Apple. Make sure you're subscribed across all the platforms, Apple, Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube if you prefer to watch the show. It really, really helps. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next week.